We'll get into it. I'm just so I'm with my co-host Tolga, who's from Veracity. If you want to introduce yourself briefly.
Hi everybody, this is Tolga from Veracity Middle East office. Thank you very much for joining today.
Perfect.
Thank you for inviting me for this one also, James.
Of course. All right, I need to. The presentation's trying to open up on my other screen. I'm just trying to figure out how to change the screen. Cool. Can you just to confirm, you can see the presentation, right, Tolga?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. All right. So as I mentioned, kind of what we're doing. So background on Network Optix, just for anyone who is coming from the Veracity side and may not know who we are. We are a VMS company, and we were started in 2010. First platform was released in 2012, and the main reason we kind of started this platform was actually because the founders thought there has to be a better way of doing video. Basically, they used a lot of old VMS platforms that kind of designed on what were kind of more archaic or traditional principles from the 90s, and they were like, well, tech's come a long way in the last 10, 15 years, so let's rebuild a platform that has a lot more kind of advantages in it than what's being done already. So that's kind of why we were founded, and these were the core principles that they came up with that we need to do to basically make sure that we have a platform that's a lot more modern, a lot more utilized on today's kind of technology standards. The first one of that being instantly usable. A lot of the platforms out there, they're great platforms, but they're designed in a very complex and cumbersome way. They're not really designed for your average person to use in terms of your security guards, your admin people, whoever may just want to jump on and use the platform on a daily basis. Without having to go through lots and lots of training and lots of understanding of what's this, what's that. And if you don't use it for a long time, then you kind of forget a lot of these things, right? It's kind of the principles of learning things is through repetition. So if you're not getting the repetition, then you're not going to ever learn it. So we built the platform and said, forget about what's been done before. Let's get some UI designers, some UX designers. Based on modern day technology, how can we make this the most understandable, easy to use platform without compromising any feature set, right? So we still have all the advanced features you would get, but it's just designed in a very fast, user-friendly and intuitive way. So that was kind of like a big core feature for us, because more and more people are using video systems. There's more and more cameras out there every day. As we'll kind of discuss a bit later on with everything that's going on with AI as well, we want more video streams to be able to get more intelligent video. So definitely the usability side is one of the most important factors within a VMS system today. On top of that, the fact that it's lightweight, the speed of the system in general, we wanted to make sure that it was fast. I've seen VMSs where when you double click the icons that open on your computer, you have to wait a full 2 or 3 minutes before it actually launches, and buffering video stream. So we implemented a lot of things in terms of the actual system being quite lightweight. So the software itself is it's pretty small in terms of the install file, only a couple of 100 megs to install the entire system. We support most platforms, so it can pretty much run on anything, so it is completely versatile as well. And then we do some cool things like adaptive scaling, which basically means that you can stream video a lot faster than a lot of other systems. So one of the things you'll see when we do a demo later is that we can access video very fast compared to competitive systems, purely based on a few principles that we do to keep everything lightweight, but without compromising any actual resolution or anything. And then just to give you an idea of how lightweight we are, we can do 128 dual streaming cameras on a single core of a Core i3 processor, right? So the systems out there where you need these big Xeon processors with large servers and everything are kind of a thing of the past more. So we can do 128 cameras on a Core i3, so like an Intel NUC or something. We even run on Raspberry Pi, just to give you an idea of how lightweight we are. If you want to do 12 cameras on a Raspberry Pi, you can do 12 cameras on a Raspberry Pi. So it's really important that you can basically install it anywhere and on anything and have it fast and easy to use. And then the last one is the extensibility of the system, which is kind of more what we're going to touch on today. Extensibility being the fact that it can be used for anything. People are starting to come up with a lot of very specific and niche security ideas within their VMS system. purely because there's a lot of technology out there today. There's a lot more kind of AI and trends in the consumer industry that then obviously cross over into the security industry, where you might want to use facial recognition, or you might want to have like AI on your system, or you might want to have linkages to open up gates and all these kind of things. And we have a lot of tools in terms of our REST API, our Meta API, Meta SDK, Source SDK, HTTP event notifications, all this that basically allows us to create quite customized systems now, and the system is very extensible in terms of just being able to fit and mold to most people's requirements. So we're kind of going to talk more about the AI within this presentation. It's the main thing that we want to touch on, to give you guys an idea of what can be done. So some of the other, so there are our kind of core principles. So I'll just run through some of the key advantages of the system. Some of you may already know this. So as I mentioned, the advanced UI/UX, so the maximizing the usability, which I already touched on, right? The lightweight and cross-platformness I already spoke about. The adaptive scaling. So the adaptive scaling is where we utilize the substream and the high resolution stream of every single IP camera. So then when it delivers it from the server to the client, based on your network usage and your bandwidth, it will actually scale the stream to make sure that you have the maximum quality. So if you've got 60 streams open and one of them's large and the other ones are small, it's going to make sure that the small streams on your screen are all low resolution and the larger ones are always in the high resolution. This way, from a user perspective, you don't really see what's going on, because if you're looking at 60 4K streams on a 1080p monitor, you really don't need the resolution there. So it's always going to make sure that when you need high resolution, when there's larger video streams or things are zoomed in on or anything like that, you'll always have the resolution. When you don't need the resolution because they're small on your screen or because they're not really being utilized, then it saves your bandwidth to make sure that that bandwidth is available for the cameras that need the high resolution. So it really makes for a very smooth and a lot more satisfying kind of viewing experience, where you're not getting lots of glitchy video, even if you're remote from the other side of the world. It gives you a lot more advantages that way. We have a unique Hive architecture, which we won't touch on too much today. If you don't know much about our Hive architecture, feel free to reach out to us, or you can reach out to Veracity, because they know everything about our software. I'm pretty sure Tolga can probably answer as much as I can. The Hive architecture in a nutshell, basically, we don't have a central management server. What we do have is something called database replication, where every single server as part of a system hosts a full database. Which means that you can use any server as an access point to the system. So it's a lot more adaptable in terms of the networking infrastructure. It also means things like failover are built in as a feature. If one of the servers in a Hive go down, the cameras will automatically distribute across the available servers. So it's, rather than having to actually preempt failover and have extra machines and a lot of extra networking and licenses and devices, it's just a case of, oh, let's just turn failover on. It becomes a feature rather than something you have to prepare for. And a lot of other kind of advantages come with the Hive. But today we're talking more about the AI side of things, so I don't want to delve too into that. But as I said, if you do want to find out more about it, feel free to reach out to myself or Tolga or someone at the Veracity team or the NX team, and I'm sure we can help you. Failover is a feature, as I said. So cloud connectivity, we actually have a cloud connection system that means you don't have to do any port forwarding, you don't need to know any IP addresses, you don't have to track systems. It basically does it all for you. It uses something called NAT reversal to basically punch a hole through the firewall or your local firewall and get you access to your systems without actually needing to do any complex networking again. So again, it's all about that simpler use, simple accessibility, making sure you can always access your system. Even if you have multiple sites and you connect them all to your cloud, you can then merge them into a Hive via the cloud. So you actually really, on a networking point of view, everything is a lot more simple. I know some of the other systems out there, you have to port forward, 5 or 6 different ports, depending on what you want to do. Ours, you don't have to port forward anything if you use the cloud. Or if you don't want to use clouds, you still only need to port forward 1 port, and we do everything over a single port. So again, make things as simple and as easy to use. And then kind of touching on the metadata tools. This is a newer thing for the platform in the last kind of year and a half, or 2 years now, probably actually COVID's made my time go a lot faster than I realized. The metadata tools we're going to touch into more, but basically it allows you to deeply integrate any kind of AI into the system where it feels like it's part of the system. So that kind of touches on the extensibility we were talking about. There's a lot of kind of integrations out there that aren't necessarily the greatest integrations, where you still feel like you're using two disparate systems and it's just a case of data flow between the two. With ours, we've really tried to make it feel like you're using a singular system with a core of a different AI company that's kind of driving it. So from an end user point of view, everything is done from inside of our client, which makes life a lot easier. It's a lot more intuitive and a lot more user friendly. And then the last thing we'll touch on is the licensing side of it. So in terms of our integrations, it's all free. We don't actually charge for any integrations. So if it's using integrations of whatever facial recognition company, or if it's the integrations of the in-camera AI intelligence, or if it's integration to LPR or whatever it may be, all our integrations are free. We don't charge from our side for any integrations. We have a different licensing model to most. We actually don't have any ongoing fees. So once you purchase the license, all your updates and everything are free. So it's on a total cost of ownership basis. It really is a lot more competitive than a lot of other systems out there, especially when you look 5-10 years down the line on what your total system cost would be. We are extremely more cost competitive than a lot of other systems out there. And again, even the licensing is simple, right? It's a camera license per a license per camera. Effectively, we don't have server licenses, no user licensing, no additional bolt-on licensing or failover licensing or anything. It's just, oh, I've got 50 cameras or I've got 200 cameras, just buy 200 recording licenses. So it's a lot more simple in terms of the licensing side as well.
There is one question I am always receiving for this part. James, they are asking like this free upgrade for lifetime is for the minor version of the software or the major version. So like 4.2 to 4.3, they will get update, but when it comes to version 5, will they get update also for lifetime free of charge?
Yeah, so it's for lifetime free of charge. So for instance, when we went from 3.2 to 4, or 3.3 to 4, I can't remember which was the last one we did in 3s. Yeah, everybody could update as well for free from 3 to 4. So it's all the major versions, everything is all included. Okay, so getting more into the AI side of stuff, right? So what exactly can be done with video AI at the moment? Like, why is everyone talking about video AI? Just to give you a background of kind of what's the trend in the market in general, right? So a lot of video systems are already implemented, they're already out there. They capture what I call a lot of dumb data, right? If you've got 1,000 cameras and they're all just recording without any AI on them, you're basically just capturing dumb data. You have to have someone to add the intelligence, whether it be a security guard who's going to sit there and watch all this data live or go and review it all in the past. That's how you add the intelligence to it, is by reviewing the data or having a lot of security guards watching a lot of live footage. There's no intelligence to the actual data until you add the security guard or the person into that. So what the AI does is it actually analyzes the video stream. So then you're basically creating intelligence via the AI to the video stream. And then you can make it searchable, or you can make it alert on certain things. So then we start to create what we would call a situationally aware system, right? So let's say you have 1,000 cameras that are only looking at sidewalks. So then you know that if you see a car on the sidewalk, there's a problem. So then you don't need a security guard watching 1,000 cameras. You just have AI that's analyzing 1,000 streams that says, if you see a car, alert a security guard, just one person to see that video. So that's where we start to talk about situational awareness. You don't need to see all these 1,000. You don't need to live monitor these cameras. The computer will tell you what you need to see, when you need to see it. And that's where this intelligence comes in, because not only are you kind of reducing the amount of eyes that you're having to watch it, and you're making a lot more use out of your video system. You also don't have to worry about the chance of someone missing this one camera that you may have in a 1,000 camera infrastructure. So in terms of kind of what kind of things can be done, we're seeing a lot of object classification. Object classification being like if it's looking for people, if it's looking for cars, if it's looking for animals. We can search for backpacks, we can search for mobile phones, we can search for people wearing hats, people wearing face masks. There's the object classification is where basically you're just looking for something inside of a video strip. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just saying like I need to look for a hat, for instance. So for it, we do health and safety ones for construction sites. We partner with a company for that, and they basically will search to make sure everyone's wearing a yellow high-vis vest and they're wearing a hard hat. And if they're not wearing a yellow high-vis vest or they're not wearing a hard hat, it needs to alert the site manager, so the site manager can either reprimand them or just go over and tell them that they need to put on their protective gear or whatever it may be, right? So the object classification is kind of the big one right now. It's probably the one that most people are focused on. It's what AI is the best for at the moment in terms of the way that you have to train a system. Then the next level up from that is where we're actually looking for identity, which means, let's say in object classification, you're searching for a face. Anyway, you're just looking for a face. That's one thing. Then where you create identity, where you actually now have face recognition versus face detection. So once you've done the face detection, you now can pull every face outside the system, and then you can start doing face recognition on top of that. So again, this is a very used system. Facial recognition and license plate recognition is probably two of the most commonly requested AI at the moment. That's kind of your next step up, right? And then what can happen with there is you can actually trigger events, or you can integrate with access control, for instance. So if you see a certain license plate, you can open up a boom gate, or if you see a certain face, you can open up a doorway, for instance. So now when we've kind of got the classifications and the identity, this is where business logic comes in. And what business logic is, it's, okay, I've classified one thing, but now I need to check what it's doing and actually add in the rules to that thing. So for instance, we've got line crossing or zone detection, or it could be traffic systems. And this is where a lot of the systems start to separate out and become a lot more specific in terms of what AI they're doing. So some AIs are focused on healthcare, some AIs are focused on traffic systems, some AIs focused on educational facilities, whatever it may be. And this is where the base level of classification is kind of similar in terms of how it works. And then it's the business logic that kind of separates out the difference between the AI systems. So for instance, if you're just looking for a perimeter detection, it's going to start classifying if there's an animal, if there's a person, if there's a car, and then you can say, okay, if I want to know if someone's hanging around my building. So then you can draw a zone out front of your door, and then it's going to say, all right, that's a dog inside the zone. That doesn't matter. So that's part of the business logic, right? Oh, if there's a person inside of the door and they're waiting there for 10 seconds, all right, set up an alert that there's something fishy going on, because they shouldn't be waiting at midnight outside of your front door for 10 seconds. So this is where the business logic side starts to come in, and how different AI systems will separate out based on kind of what they're focusing on. So for instance, Tolga was talking about Centurion, who are doing fight detection, right? So effectively, you're analyzing that there's two people, and then you're analyzing how they're interacting with each other and how their framework is kind of fighting with each other. So the business logic tells you that these two people are in a fight, or these two people aren't in a fight. So this is where we kind of will start seeing the separation, which is why it's going to be really hard to find one AI does all, because it's going to be like very specific focusing, and that's where the productization is coming in pretty well. So then we've got the deep learning side of it, which is where we kind of like focus on behavioral analysis, which is where we can start looking, the system starts learning what's normal, and this is what a lot of people are trying to do now, because it will make life a lot easier. But basically, if you put a kind of behavioral analysis system on a large VMS system, it can start learning what is normal, and then it can start on its own learning abnormal kind of movements or behaviors within your video system. So for instance, it starts to learn, okay, cars usually travel in this direction at this speed going this way, and then over time it will know what the norms of the system are, and then it can start alerting. And that's kind of where people, I think, are trying to get to with the AI, because then it's training itself on your system, and it starts to learn your specific environmentals, which is one of the largest issues with AI at the moment. Is a car or a street in the US looks very different to a street in the UK, for instance. So there's a lot more false reads depending on what data set was being trained on. So with systems now that are starting to learn based on your own data and can learn over time. So we work with a company called RoboVision in the Netherlands, and that's kind of their whole thing, is that you can start training it on your own data sets, which means your confidence values increase astronomically, versus if you just took a system that was trained off of the wrong data set and tried to put it on your system. because everything looks different. Even if you take like a field in Australia versus a field in the UK, there's a lot more sun in Australia than the UK, I can tell you that. So you can see there's going to be different reflections and different angles on lighting and things, so things will pick up differently based on what the cameras are seeing. So this is kind of just a quick overview of the way the kind of breakdown of what's AI and what we're kind of doing at the moment. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Tolga, as I know you're working a lot at AI at the moment.
There was a very interesting case we faced at Sri Lanka. You know, in Asia, they are using those tuk-tuks, three-wheel bikes for transportation. AI car detection was detecting tuk-tuks as truck because when you see it on the site, it literally looks like a small truck. But when we requested from AI company, like this is the issue, they said no problem, send us some videos. They by using deep learning, they trained the algorithm and it start to detect the tuk-tuks as tuk-tuk, not car or truck. So that shows us how flexible it is nowadays. So if you have a specific requirement to detect specific objects, it can be trained. I think this is the one of the best part of using deep learning and AI together.
Yeah, for sure, and that's one of the advantages of like the company I mentioned, RoboVision. They have like a vehicle classifier, and you can actually train it yourself. So like you can once you're on the system, you can just say like, all right, this is a tuk-tuk, and then you just keep showing it videos of tuk-tuks, and then it will learn it on its own without having to. And this is where the productization part really comes in important, because if you have to keep going back to the manufacturer to tweak the system, it's a bottleneck. You can't constantly then deliver AI, and then obviously the cost of AI is going to go up because they have to build in the cost, so they have to keep training the system. So as we see more productization, there's going to be more and more systems, I think, that allows you to adjust the not the algorithms, but the training of the system to train it on your own data sets. So it was going to be really interesting the way that things move in the future, especially with like allowing that to happen. But yeah, no, that's an interesting case. Cool. So how does this all tie in with NX, right? So we've mentioned the Meta SDK before, and how it's like deeply integrated into the system. So we can stream and store all the metadata to our system, right? So what we do is the way that it effectively works is we have our engine in the back end. Someone then builds a plugin to our system that can grab all the video streams. So we still manage all the video streams, we aggregate all the data. So we can take all those video streams, send them to the AI plugin. The AI plugin can then do its analysis, which means that the AI companies they're just focusing on what they're really good at, which is data. And we get to focus on what we're really good at, which is UI and UX and kind of video management. So then what happens is they send back all the data back to us in metadata. We database all of that onto our system. We hold all the metadata. And then what that allows us to do is actually show all the boundary boxes on the screen. So, you know, a lot of people actually like to see what the AI is doing. So you'll see the boxes filled like over the face, for instance, and it will show you all the details. It means that we can search all that metadata. So we can actually search, for instance, if we're using object classification, I want to see someone with a bag, we can actually search all this information and instantly find it. We can then automate actions based on it as well. So let's say a lot of the museums, right? In a museum, you're not allowed to bring in bags, well, at least in Australia, you're not. So every time you go into a museum in Australia, you have to check your bag. You're not allowed one in. So then if you start running AI, you can say like, all right, I've detected someone with a bag in this room at this point, and you can send a push notification to the security guard, and the security guard can go to that room and go and tell the person who has the bag, you need to go check your bag, or potentially search their bag. One of the issues is in Australia, there's a lot more things open on display, so it's a lot easier to steal things. But so there's a lot of different use cases for it, right? And people kind of don't realize the amount of use cases that you could probably find. So there's you know, it could be anything from, like I said, cars on sidewalks to bags inside of museums, or even mobile phones in courthouses where you're not allowed mobile phones. And if the AI detects someone with a mobile phone inside of the courtroom, then it can remove them, sort of thing. So there's a lot of different things based on object classification you can do. And all that can be set up. Or even if you're doing face identity, you can create the actions inside of our system where if there's a whitelisted person, the door opens. If there's a person on the kind of like the blacklist, then it will send a push notification to a security guard to say this person was caught graffitiing, for instance. We did one with a university where they had a list of people that had been caught like vandalizing or graffitiing or like just generally getting in fights on the campuses or whatever. So anytime that person came back onto campus, the facial recognition system automatically sent a notification to the surveillance monitoring room. They could see who it was. They then have a button on the video where they can click it, and it basically pushes a notification out to the security guards. The security guards then know what's going on, and they can go and ask the person to leave, or at least like get them and bring them into the security office to have words, we'll say. And so there's a lot more in terms of the linkaging inside of NX. So you can display all the data, you can search all the data, and you can automate. So that was what I was talking about, the situational awareness side of things, right? So you don't need to have 100 security guards watching 1,000 cameras. You can just have one security guard that's only seeing the things that it needs to see based off of the AI telling you, oh, you need to see this, you don't need to see that. So you're not sitting there with lots and lots of videos with massive video walls. You can almost sit there with one laptop in front of you and you'll just be told what you need to see. So it makes the whole system a lot more usable, and you've got a lot more intelligence inside of that dumb video that we were talking about before. So we can add a lot more value in terms of how the whole system links together and how much data you get. So a couple of different types of AI. We were kind of talking about this actually at the beginning before we kicked off. We had a little chat about it. Edge AI versus centralized AI. So just to give you an idea of the two, at NX we actually integrate with both. One of the big advantages with Edge AI is the distributed power of the system, and the fact that you don't have to have larger extra servers to maintain in the middle. So if you use Edge AI, a lot of cameras we can integrate with. So there's no additional licensing on the or hardware required, right? So if you're using, for instance, a Vivotech camera has the smart VCA functions. So all the line crossing, all the perimeter detection, everything is all brought into the system. So you don't need any extra licensing for that. You don't need any extra hardware. You don't need to buy centralized systems. There's less to maintain overall because you're not maintaining additional hardware. The stability is better because if one camera goes down, you don't lose the whole thing. Whereas if it's centralized, if that goes down, you lose all your AI. So I really like the kind of edge approach personally. I think a lot more people are moving out to the edge approach. I had a meeting with a startup last week who are building basically edge AI applications versus trying to go centralized. And at the moment, we have deep integration with specific camera brands, and we are rapidly trying to increase this and get as many camera brands in as possible. At the moment, Vivotech, Kalmar, Dahua, Hikvision, Bosch. We also do Provision, and there's a couple of others that will be added there shortly. But basically, your whole system cost will be reduced in terms of if you have centralized AI, just because you're not using extra hardware, no extra licensing. There was a video here, but actually I have an actual live demo I can show you of this at the end. And then centralized. So centralized, there's a couple of advantages of it. We can use open source modules. So we use something called OpenVino from Intel, which is free. And basically you can just install that onto your system, and straight away on any camera for a retrofit, rather than having to replace the camera, you can get all the AI. And we have a good demo of that as well, which Tolga has on his system. So Tolga will give you that demo at the end. So we'll give you a couple of demos to show you how all this all ties together and works. The advantage with a lot of the centralized one is what Tolga was mentioning earlier with the custom development. So for instance, he needed to be able to see the tuk-tuks better. With the edge cameras, you're not going to be able to get that as much because they're kind of embedded, they're kind of set up, you'd need firmware changes and stuff, whereas a lot with the centralized systems, you can do a lot more you can do a lot more customization in terms of the relearning, the rejigging, which is good at the moment until we get to that point where it can be kind of like better on the edge in terms of being able to push out updates and things like that. We have a marketplace for all of our partners as well. So if you are going like centralized, everything is there and available in terms of the plugins and everything that you need. And as I said, for retrofits, it's a little bit better because it bolts onto the existing infrastructure. So if you've already got 500 cameras and none of them have AI on it, you don't have to go and rechange all the AI. So you can then put in servers at the center and then just add it onto the existing camera streams and infrastructure without having to go and do any complex networking and replacing anything. However, there are a lot of companies now that are kind of doing a bit of a mix between edge and centralized, where they're using kind of Intel, or not Intel, NVIDIA Jetson boxes, ruggedized ones, where they'll do 4 to 8 cameras. And instead of having one massive central server, you can actually distribute those out around the system, which is actually probably more cost effective because, again, they're designed platform based. So rather than just being some software that you install onto a Windows motherboard or Windows system, it's actually they're designed specifically to run on a specific chipset and platform, which means they get a lot more power out of it because they don't have to design to work on different processors and different chipsets and different motherboards. So the kind of appliance-based approach is a pretty good approach. And again, like I said, we have a demo of this, so I'll let Tolga show you a demo a bit later. So this is kind of, we actually really discussed this, so I'm just repeating, but it helps you with the situational awareness, right? So what you actually get from all this together is you remove all the false alarms. So for instance, if you're just using motion detection, there's lots of false alarms and things like that. So now we can run through like the person detection, which is something that Tolga really likes with the OpenVINO stuff, is the fact that it's a free plug-in that you plug in that you can just add on, and straight away you remove all this kind of stuff. You can kind of integrate with all the access control systems like the face recognition. And then, like I said, you only see what you need to see, and you only receive the critical data in real time. You don't need to just kind of be watching dumb video. So on that note, I will hand it over to Tolga, and sorry that took a little bit longer to go through than I thought it was. I get too excited when I talk about these things. So let me hand it over to Tolga, and he will run through how we integrate with all the cold store systems with Veracity to basically give you a much stronger storage solution. So I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, James. So NX is doing the VMS part, AI is doing the detection part. However, you need a place to store all these data securely. So this is where Veracity appears in the picture. We are a manufacturer of CCTV storage, and it is a specialized storage only for CCTV, only for storing video and metadata. And Coldstore is our storage product series. Just a second. Yeah. So good thing about Coldstore, we have a deep integration with Network Optix, and we have a Network Optix embedded version of our Coldstore storage. What does it mean? Network Optix comes pre-installed on the Coldstore, and you can just start using it after changing the IP username and password, and all these AI integrations and videos are stored easily, quickly. Coldstore has a couple of unique functions that nobody else has it. Our RAID protection is, we call it LAID, actually, providing a better protection than RAID 6. However, the overhead raw to net data loss is less than RAID 5. So it is giving you access of all your hard drive, and with a lot of benefits. We are giving the Coldstore with 5 years warranty on hard drives, which is when you combine with the free upgrades with Network Optix, giving more advantage. How we integrate with Network Optix, actually, it is using your Network Optix storage SDK. So we are adding Coldstore in your Hive, and we store everything in the Coldstore, which is your users, device configurations, event rules, and still you are having the full advantage of the Hive architecture. Device failures are not affecting overall health of your system in any given time. Just trying to shift my presentation. Sorry, there is just a hanging in my computer. So as I told before, we are using the storage SDK from Network Optix, which is having a deep integration for the storage part. So Network Optix directly speaking with Coldstore, storing all the video data and other information in Coldstore seamlessly. It is not like a generic integration. It is a specific integration that has been done for the cold store through a storage SDK. There are 3 models we are having currently. And one of the advantages, we can use the biggest capacity drives available in the market. Currently, 18 terabytes are the biggest available. So we can use them. And in future, if the 20, 30 terabytes will be available, we can use them immediately. We have 3 versions. Coldstore 2U comes with 8 disk space that you can have 144 terabyte capacity with that one. Coldstore 3U with 15 disk space that we can have 270 terabyte capacity. And we have Coldstore Colossus, which is a 4U device with 45 disk space that you can have 800 terabyte of massive capacity, especially for long-term retention. 4U is our shining star. As I told you, Network Optix is doing that part by managing the video cameras, and AI is doing their part for detecting the anomalies. And as Veracity, we are doing our part to store those data safely for you without getting you affected from any hard disk failure. I know it's very quick, so we are not in the AI part too much. We are in the storing the AI part. So if there is any questions from the audience, I can answer. We can answer.
Yeah, if anyone's got any questions relating to AI or the Veracity cold store systems, which adds a lot of functionality, especially now that we're embedded directly on them. I think it adds like a really good approach to the infrastructure.
It's already a very easy to install software, James. So it's just taking 2 minutes. However, having it pre-installed also giving another, ease of use. You just get the box, change the IP address and username. You can start immediately using it.
Exactly. It also removes the worry about stability, right? So like the fact that you're not going out there and sourcing your own hardware or anything like that, which also makes people slightly more complex in terms of making sure that they're worried that they've got the right hardware or they've set things up correctly. Whereas if you buy the Veracity system and it's all pre-installed, all ready to go, you know that it's all warranted out of the box and everything's good, right? You don't have to worry about the fact that you picked the right hardware platform or anything. So I think it adds quite a lot of advantage with the new embedded systems. So. Okay, cool. So what we'll do is we'll jump into a demo if no one's got any questions. I don't see any questions. There is a Q&A system that you can use, so feel free to jump onto it. Also, Oscar from our team is, I've just made a panelist, so I don't know if he wants to say anything. He's more than welcome to jump on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the Edge AI that we talked about with one of our camera brands that we support to show you what that looks like. So I'm just going to take over the presenter again, check my screen, and then after that, Tolga will show you how that works with the centralized system, especially with the free OpenVINO style of things. All right, can you see my screen, Tolga?
Cool. Yes, I can.
So you can see here, we've just got a camera open in the middle here. We've actually got the line. So this line is not burnt in like the old school days where the video stream would actually have it burnt in. And this line is added on top inside of our system, and we can turn it on or turn it off. So if we go into playback, we don't have to see it. So we can visually represent where your lines and your zones and your boundaries are. You can also see we have all this data coming in. So this is all from in-camera. So basically there's no additional licensing for any of this. There's no additional infrastructure needed. You just have to have the right cameras from one of the lists that I showed you before. So for instance, let's double click this so we can see this is doing person tracking. So you can see here it's got the boundary box over the person. It's coming up person tracking. We've got 2 people that we're detecting in the scene at the same time. And then on the right hand side here, you can see it's actually picking up some additional information. So it's telling you the color of the clothing that he's wearing, that he's got a bag, his gender, the top color, and the fact that it says he's not wearing a hat. However, he is wearing a hat. So That's where AI training systems comes in that we were talking about earlier. So we can scroll through this and we can look for different things, right? So if I want to say, I want to see anytime people are wearing black items of clothing, then I can type in black, and then it's going to give me any times that someone was detected with predominantly black. So you can see the top color here is detected as black. So I think it's just a dark camera. So let's go for, I don't know, yellow, see if anyone's ever wearing yellow. And then, so we can also search if we want to see male or female, if we want to see, you know, someone that wasn't wearing a hat. So let's see if we, it's a garage, so let's see if we get any female at the time. So here you go. You can see it's also detecting female. So if I now double click, it's going to jump back to when it's detected female. If my system goes, okay. So we can search for all different types of things, right? So like we were talking about, we might want to say if it was I don't know, a men's locker room, and you want to search female and you want an alert that there was a female in there, or any of those kind of things, or vice versa. If it's a female locker room and you want an alert if a male kind of walks into the locker room, you can have all this kind of like detail based on the AI. So no one's actually looking at these video streams except for AI systems. And then we can all make it all searchable or alertable or kind of any of those things. So it's it adds a lot more functionality, and you do it all from the camera. So I can actually right click here, I can go to camera settings, I can go to plugins, and I can actually change all my settings from here. So I can go to my IVA lines, so you can see it's drawn here. I can say I'm looking for people and for vehicles, what it's called. So then that's what the alert's going to come in, and when someone crosses there, it's going to say roller door entry. And I can add a new line if I want to. So I can come to here, I can change the color of it to make sure that I can differentiate between my lines. Sorry, it's nighttime on this camera, so you can't see much, but I can draw my line, and I can say bi-directional, one direction, two directional, whichever we want to do. So I'm going to cancel that. And then, as I said, you can turn off if you want to actually see the line or not. So if I hit that, it will now disappear on my camera in the background. If I turn it on again, I can have it back. And then once we set up all these lines and these things, so we can do object tracking, we can say what we're trying to track, faces, vehicles, whatever it may be. So I don't have to go to the camera ever. I can get all this access, all this information from here to feel like it's actually been added into the system. And then from that, I can then create my rules and events, right? So I can say, okay, if my IVA line called roller door entry is crossed, I want to send a push notification. I want to do this, I want to do that. And we can do all that via our rules engine. Just down here, so we just go to analytics event. I can select the camera that it's on, if I can remember the camera that it's on. I think it's this one. Yeah. So if I select this, now I've got all my events here, right? So I can say, all right, we wanted to do one of the events. I'm trying to see where are the. So let's say entering the area, right? And then I can say entering the area, I can put in what the area is called here. So then it's only going to trigger on that one. If we've got two areas, we can do two different rules. And then what do I want it to be? So I can send a push notification. I can make it speak. I can make it say, like, if someone's dwelling, I can make an automated speaker say, like, please leave the area, you are under surveillance. All these kind of things. Push notifications are really handy because it's like a WhatsApp message. It just gives you direct access instantly. So it adds a whole bunch of functionality in what we want to do. So that's kind of the edge style. Like I said, there's a bunch of different cameras this works with. It's reduces the cost of ownership on the system because you're not adding extra hardware. It's a lot easier to maintain the system because you don't have extra hardware to maintain. And especially with the Coldstore NX combo doing all the databasing and all the recording and everything in the back end, it really gives you kind of a very smooth and easy system for maintenance and kind of like management of the system. So on top of that, like I said, we have the centralized style, and we work with something called OpenVino. OpenVino is a free AI kind of module from Intel, and we've integrated with that, which means that even on a normal system you might have right now, we can add OpenVino straight away. And you can get a bunch of additional AI features for free as is. You can do it tomorrow if you've really got a system. So it really adds a lot of extra advantages. So I'm going to hand it back over to Tolga, and Tolga will show you exactly what that looks like.
A question, James. Do we need to install any plugin, any software for this in-camera analytics integration, or it comes built in with Network Optix?
It comes built in. So the in-camera AI comes built in because we assume that most people that have these cameras are going to just want to work straight away. So the in-camera AI is built in. The centralized AI style needs you to obviously install the plugin. So yeah, so for the camera one, all built in, just works straight away. You right-click the camera, you just have to turn it on, and you're good to go. And then for the centralized server version, it's literally a plugin file that you just drop into the plugins folder, and then you go back to your settings, and it will have appeared, and you just have to turn it on. So again, very easy to install. It's not. We try to make things as simple as possible. So I let you take over. Yep, you're sharing your screen. Perfect. So you can see that.
Yeah, thank you. It was a very interesting also news for us to know that an analytics software free of charge. So thanks to Intel, they made it open source, and thanks to the Network Optics team, they integrated with Intel. And during your presentation, as you speak, person detection through AI is something bringing another layer of security, because so far people was trying to use motion detection for detecting anomalies in the certain time period, which was ending up with all false alarms. So especially in the evening, security guards cannot take the motion alarm serious, because even a passing by car headlights are triggering all the motion alarms in the building. But when it comes to person detection through AI, so if the security guard receiving a message saying that there is a person in the rooftop, not a motion, a person, that changes everything. So they have to take action immediately, because AI is checking that part. So they need to take action against it. And having those person detection and line crossing and other kind of behavior analytics free of charge from Intel is something very useful for all our partners. So actually, it is very easy. You just copy a piece of folder to your Network Optics server. And as you can see here, it is detecting all the persons. First, it comes with person detection. So you just click on that part, and it will give you where that people was detected. And in the timeline also, you are seeing it. Configuration is super easy. You just go to camera settings. So in the plugins part, you will find the OpenVino. You can do confidence, change the confidence level for the person detection. Line crossing algorithms free of charge also. So you can draw any lines and create multiple line crossing analytic alarms, both sides, single side, or behavior analysis, area monitoring, such as entering the area, exiting, dropped object, missing object, loitering. And this is not depending on any camera brand and model, as far as I know. Whatever the camera they are using, they can use OpenVine, right, James? Even old ones.
Yeah, it's completely it's fine to retrofit on anything. So even as long as there is an RTSP stream or an HTTP stream from the camera, so it could be, it could be a camera from 10 years ago that we just managed to grab an RTSP stream from, and you'll still be able to do it. So it's great for retrofits.
Yeah, and Intel is not charging any money for this one, right?
No, it's an open source plugin that I believe anyone can just download and install. Yeah, I mean, I've done it, so it's very simple.
I'm also using for my office. Very useful.
Yeah, so it really does allow anyone who has a system already and just wants to go to that next level, just to start testing AI, to just jump onto it. Like I said, this is like your basic classification without a lot of business logic. So it depends on what your use case is. You're not going to get fight detection. You're not going to get traffic surveillance or anything from this. This is object classification with some perimeter detection function. So it's a good start to test on your system to see if you want to utilize AI in the future and kind of go down the paid route later on. So it's a good step into the AI kind of realms.
Yeah, you're right. That's all that I can show from my demo system also.
Perfect.
Do we have any questions raised by people?
Oh, I think we've got a question coming in. I can't, for some reason, can you read the question? Because mine's not lit. 1 second. I need to rejig I've got like too many boxes open. Yeah, Oscar's having the same issue as me, the boxes, and it won't let me move the questions. Yeah, Oscar, are you having the same issue where you can't actually, the question box is too small?
I can read it unless I'm organizer, so I'm a panelist. I don't think I get to read.
Okay. Let me make you 1 second. So everyone, Oscar is from our team, is on, if you want to say anything, Oscar. Okay, I've got the question through. I got a test question from Amar, thank you. All right, thank you for a great presentation. How can we get presentation files? Yeah, so we'll be uploading the presentation to our YouTube, and we usually have the presentation file up there as well, or you can email myself, or you can email Tolga, or anyone if you're at the NX or Veracity organizations, and we will get the presentation file over to you, I'm sure. What burden does the Intel analytics bring to NX? Nothing to NX. We don't do any additional processing on our side. We just database metadata, which we've always done. So if anyone's used our smart search feature and how quickly we can just draw a section of on a screen and instantly show all the data for it, that's just metadata. So all we've done is extended the way that we already did metadata to allow more metadata and also display boxes and things better. But even then, we still showed you the zones where the motion was going on, where there was motion, where there wasn't motion, all based on metadata. So all we've done is basically extend existing capabilities and make it a lot more functional with smarter AI versus motion detection, which is technically a video analytic, but it's so standard that no one really considers it one anymore. So yeah, there's no burden from using OpenVINO. The only burden is the actual OpenVINO platform itself on the Intel CPU. I couldn't tell you the exact numbers of how many cameras you can run. One of the advantages of the Intel CPUs is they do have the quick sync function, which means they have a dedicated core to video decoding, which I'm pretty sure Intel, the OpenVINO system will use, because it wouldn't make sense for them to write their own software and not use it properly for their CPU. Although it wouldn't be the first time I've seen something like that happen. But yeah, so I think you probably don't want to run too many, but yeah, you can run on a few cameras. I couldn't tell you the exact amounts. I don't know if you've done any testing, Tolga, on how many cameras you could run on an Intel using OpenVINO.
I work with several video analytics companies, and except the one running in GPUs, there is a basic rule. It changes from brand to brand, but actually the rule is one CPU core is one analytic on one camera. So if you have an 8-core CPU just dedicated for this job, you will approximately have 8 to 10 cameras running on that one, that you will hit the CPU limitation, of course. So we wouldn't recommend you to utilize 100% of your CPU only with the analytics, because network optics will need such a thing. But the basic calculation, one CPU core for one analytics. So those softwares are usually computing hungry software. It is not a real life or OpenVINO specification, but usually this is what I faced: one core, one analytics.
Okay, any other questions coming in? Feel free to ask. If not, if you don't want to ask here, if you'd rather ask us personally, feel free again to reach out to us. I'm sure we'll be happy to answer any questions. Or if you're looking for the counterpart, so if you have the NX contact details and you want to be in touch with Veracity, feel free to ask us and we'll put you in touch, and I'm sure vice versa. Thank you everybody for joining. If there's no other questions, I think we'll call it there. Yes. Do you want to do any closing statements, Tolga?
Yes. So first of all, I would like to thank you for having us today for the webinar for our Middle East market. And in the Middle East market, usually we are hearing a question. Most probably most of our attendees knows it, the answer, but let us repeat. Network Optics is already, and Coldstore are already in the approved list of all the countries in GCC. So in Dubai, in Qatar, Kuwait, Abu Dhabi, Saudi, that you can use. All the government approvals are finalized. There is no limitation for you to use our solution. In case you need any design, you can get in touch with Network Optics or Veracity. We will be happy to supporting you, and thank you very much for saving your valuable time today to join us in this webinar.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. And like I said, please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or if you need any more details on either of the products or any of the things that you've seen today. And yeah, as Tolga said, thank you, everybody, for taking up your time to join us. And if you think this is valuable to anybody else that may not have been able to join, we will be uploading it to YouTube in the next few days. So feel free to look out for that link and send it on to other people that you think may get some advantages or benefits from this. So thank you, everybody, and I hope everybody, if you're in Europe, has a good day. It's 10 a.m. for us, or has a good afternoon if it's if you're in the Middle East.
Have a nice day. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.